And you said you worked at a club as a dancer, was it? At a mafia club or
Oh, I
something?
had some very checkered years there. I came from a large family, and I came here when I was 17, and I
Here in New York.
in New York,
Right.
from Denver, and yes, I had numerous jobs at the same time, and one of them was in a club called the Hobnob, which closed the doors at 11 and had many men in suits come in, and it never occurred to me that it was a mafia club, and that was where they met, and they were very nice to me. I was the hat check girl, and I worked at the Latin Quarter. When go-go clubs are big, I worked in go-go clubs. I mean, it just was anything I could do to be able to support my dancing lessons in the daytime.
Well, is that your great joy? Is dancing your great joy?
I think my great joy has morphed. Dancing was my great joy, and then being a choreographer was my great joy, and now creating projects like swing is my great joy, and the next place to go. Sort of total use of body and mind, as it were.
Well, which medium do you prefer more? I know that you've choreographed for the film world, like Footloose,
Yes.
and Titanic,
Yes.
and Swing. Which medium do you prefer?
Gee, I think that what I love is to be able to go back and forth, because there are stresses in each of those worlds that do wear you down after a while. And the movie thing is so long range, and for a choreographer sometimes so thankless, because we don't have a union, so our names aren't prominent in the credits, and sometimes that's very frustrating. We
How
don't
is
have
it
any.
frustrating? People don't recognize your name right away?
Yeah.
or-
Well, I mean, it's
For the next
we
job?
don't have participation. Like my colleagues who all created Footloose are very wealthy from that movie, but we have choreographers with no participation. We have no
You
royalties.
are a writer.
Well, it's just that's what's frustrating about that world. Although it's an amazing medium, and I so hope to do something extremely creative in that medium one day again. The Broadway world has huge, economic pressures. Going to do a commission is a joy, because I'm doing a new Carmina Burana, for instance, and nobody says, well, we want to see the sketches, and we want to, it's just that you just go do it, and it's a pure form of expression. And so it's less lucrative. So if you could possibly be lucky enough to move back and forth, it's a pretty ideal life for a creative person.
Well, what has been your greatest learning experience, would you say, thus far?
Oh, gosh, it's a hard one. I think probably swing, because it was so complex in terms of the human dynamics, and trying to amalgam people from disparate backgrounds into a family. And it was a rocky ride, and I learned a lot about myself, and about leadership, and about endurance. And I suppose I have to say swing is my greatest learning experience to date.
Oh my. Just to, as we're entering the millennium, I guess we're all learning lessons. But with swing, I want to ask, it must be like, at least this is my experience, my first swing dance was kind of like my first kiss. It's like, I don't know how you feel. When was your first swing dance?
I'm going to tell a funny story, because Ryan's in the room, Ryan Francois. When we were in London, and I was in London doing something else, and I wanted to meet Ryan and Jenny, and we went out to a club, and I wanted to see them dance. I had never seen them dance in person, just on film, and I just wanted to feel out how we might work together. And Ryan invited me out onto the floor. I'm sure it was just like an apache. I mean, I'm sure I was just, the funniest thing anyone ever saw. But, I had never really experienced it. In junior high or high school, you would just get out on this floor and do that sort of fake swing everybody did. But to do a real lead follow is a great art form, which I respect very much and cannot personally do. But that was really a quite wild 5 minutes, and very exhilarating, I must say.
Yeah.
It was great.
That is great. And so many questions, so little time. Well, just to mention once again the playbill where you mentioned your son being your greatest accomplishment. What, obviously motherhood is important to you.
Oh, yeah.
What is a good mother? That word is bandied about so much. What is a good mother?
for me, I only had one son. I only will ever have one child. So I'd have to speak, of course, in not too general of a way. But I just felt that even though we had a lot of hardship when his father left, when he was very young, 4 or 5, that if we would stay involved in each other's thoughts and activities, which is easy for a younger child. You say, oh, we'll learn how to do the alphabet together. But when people get older and life gets more complex, it's easy to drop out of each other's activities and mental activities and just become, a caregiver. And it's, I think that's the essence of it. Because, if he were sad or upset or angry, I was never angry at him for being upset. I always tried to find out why. And now he, in turn, does that to me, which just cracks me up sometimes. And he's a wonderful, wonderful person. And, as I said, although we didn't have a very traditional life when he was growing up, we traveled a great deal, and I had to get a lot of alternative care for him. The connection was really huge. And he's so supportive of my work and understands it, now, what I went through all those years. And, of course, I'm so thrilled and proud of him. And just mutual respect, isn't it?
And when you say keeping in each other's thoughts, that's a lovely expression. Could you explain that more? Do you mean like expression, communication, or just...
Yes, I suppose, a deeper sharing than just, well, what are you doing? But, how you're feeling about what you're doing and how you're feeling about yourself. And when there were problems, we just dove right into them, or problems at school, or, a sadness when someone in the family died. We just shared it very deeply. It's a kind of relationship I didn't have with my parents, so I wanted very much to have it with him.
And Lynne, has that translated for you onto the stage? Are you that way with your dancers? I know of a dance teacher who calls her students babies, and I'm one of them. But I'm wondering what kind of relationship you have.
Well, I work with people at a very high caliber, with whom I like to have more of a peer relationship. I work with some very well-known ballet dancers, and these folks who are just amazing. And so I think, it's a different kind of basis that we work on. It's more of a collaborative basis, so I don't feel parental toward them. However, I do, oftentimes get very young dancers, and then that relationship just automatically adjusts. And, it's very important. You never know what they're going through. They walk out the door after an audition they haven't gotten, and they look very pulled together, and then you see them crying later in the hall. And, you have to remember where you were at that age.
Now, what has your greatest achievement been? I mean, aside from your son.
Aside from my son. I think being able to work in the field, all these years, and not having to ever, just to earn a living in this field is just in itself a huge achievement. I mean, I can't think of one moment on an opera house stage or that I could say exceeded just the knowledge that I was going to be able to be what I wanted to be in this field.
That's wonderful. And it must have been extraordinary working on Titanic as well. Did you do a lot of research for that as well?
I did a lot of research, but there really wasn't a lot of opportunity for expression. I was more of a craftsperson, and it was really Richard Jones's vision, that show, and I was a facilitator. And hopefully I brought some personalization to it and some my own gift, but it was a very rigid job, if you would. I mean, the categories in which I was able to be effective were narrow and short, and it wasn't a musical about dancing too much, but a lot of staging.
Okay. Well, speaking of crafts, how or what would you suggest for young actors, or maybe not even do young actors, dancers, singers? How do you persevere in this business? How do you hone your craft and be an artist, and how do you present yourself? Yeah.
I think that it's a hard question, and as I like to say, when young choreographers ask me that, I say, I will tell you what I did, but I will promise you it's a different world than the one you are competing in. There are many, many more of you now, and so much more information, and of course more jobs. But I think it's still terribly, terribly difficult to hold true to your vision of what you want to be. I always encourage people to diversify. When I was a young choreographer, because I could do commercials and I could do concert work, and that I had really made it my business to learn a lot about the whole industry. I was able to hang in there, when I didn't get the kinds of things I wanted. I was still able to stay in the field, and I don't think that hurts. I mean, I think that everything teaches you. A hamburger commercial teaches you something about the way a shot is set up, or an effective way to make something go across the screen.
So I'm hearing you say learn from every experience.
Absolutely.
And use it to your advancement, as
Absolutely.
it were. Yeah.
And continue to study that which you aspire to, of course,
And when you're working on a show, Lynne, do you eat a certain way? Do you eat only hamburgers or pasta or something?
I don't eat any meats. I don't eat hamburgers. I try to have a generally healthy diet. I try really hard. It's hard. The more under stress you get, for some reason we want to punish ourselves with bad food, but try really, really hard. And just because the energy level goes down so violently when you eat wrong.
So how do you eat? What kind of foods do you recommend?
Oh, well, just the old saw, pasta, fruit, vegetables, and as much fresh food as possible, and as little soda and all those other kinds of things as possible.
And do you do an exercise regimen every day also?
I do, and I've slipped off that from time to time, but I'm back on it in the last 3 or 4 months, and I just feel so much better and look so much better. It's unbelievable how much difference that makes.
What do you do? Do you lift weights, or do you do?
Well, currently it changes all the time. Currently, I go to a gym and I do a series of that, and then I do a set of my own exercises, which I love. And I'm in the studio still quite a lot, and I try to get a little bit of aerobic activity in the studio.
I see. All the different. I was just told this morning, New York. It said you pride yourself on individuality. Yes.
I think that's probably very true.
Well, this has just been very, very delightful for me to interview you and get to know you and to see the fabulous show. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. It was a delight.
And any future plans we should know of that coming
Well,
up?
as I told you, I'm doing a new Carmina Burana, and I'm developing a show, which is a very long-range project, but hopefully I'm finding my collaborators now, so that's something that I won't talk about too much yet. And doing a wonderful new show called Elliot Ness in Cleveland with a director called David S. Bjornson. We're kind of doing that one together, so that's the current stuff.
I look forward to the next interview when those shows are on.
Love to do another one. Thanks so much.
And thank you for taking time for a cup of TV at Sardi's Restaurant in Broadway or on Broadway. See you next time. Bye-bye.